Wide-angle lenses are in everything. Doorbells, action cameras, smartphones. It seems so easy to chuck in a wide-angle lens into anything. Medium format camera systems, however, not quite so easy to chuck a wide-angle lens into. For the Hasselblad V system, the widest they could go was 40mm, equivalent to 24mm. Well, technically they went to 38mm, which is equivalent to 21mm. The only thing with that lens though is that you could only use it with the SWC body, which essentially took the mirror out of the equation, so no through the lens focusing. In fact, you just had to guess focusing. Hasselblad's mirrorless X system, being without mirrors, obviously, means less faff for wide-angle lens design. More wide-angle lens options, and here we have another one. So what exactly is new with this one? Well, as a 25mm, it slots in nicely in between the current 28mm and 21mm, offering a happy medium for those who find a 22 or 17mm equivalent either not wide enough or too wide. The 21mm is great. It's wild, it's wide, it's wildly wide. It's a special lens for special purposes. The neat compact 28mm is still very wide, but it's a focal length that is a bit more versatile. The 25mm lens is going to be usable in more situations than 21mm, while offering some of the perks of the 28mm. But hold on a minute, this lens's USP is not that DULL, because if you look at the F on those lenses, and then you check out the F on the front of this lens, then F yes, it's an f2.5, not f4. And larger aperture surprisingly doesn't make this exceedingly large. I mean, sure, it's not small, but this has to cover that. Amazingly, being a larger aperture, larger than full-frame wide-angle lens, the filter thread is just 72mm. Its metal exterior and 13 elements almost makes it feel like it should weigh heavier, but it's a lot lighter than an old Hassi 40mm. Alright, so the key bit of info is that the aperture is larger, and the difference between f4 and f2.5 is 1 1/3 stops, which makes it a lens that can be useful in the night or low light, handheld. You won't get an aperture that large on the Hasselblad XCD lens until you get to their 38mm. A wide like this 25mm, of course it's going to be useful for landscape photographers, but the large aperture means that it's not going to be just a daylight only or on a tripod kind of lens. A lesser problem with the higher ISO capabilities of digital, but with a larger aperture, you don't have to bump up the ISO so much or slow down the shutter speed. After all, you want your medium format files to be sharp and crisp, not ruined by shaky hands. And oh, by the way, this lens has a bit of weight and length to it, although if you take off the hood, you can see just how long the lens actually is. You know, it's far from unreasonably so. There are definitely some full-frame lenses which are worse offenders than this. The good thing is that it doesn't make it too front heavy, which is just as well because there's not too much weight in this body to counterbalance it really. The lens weighs a bit less than the roughly 700 grams of the body and back. It doesn't feel like you need to do much to keep the setup balanced and securely in your hand. In this low light scenario, I was using a shutter speed of 1/125, I'd probably be fine with 1/60, but I find that upping the ISO to 3200 with a CFV 100C is totally fine, so why not? With a suitably fast enough shutter speed to counteract the shaky hands caused by overconsumption of caffeinated drinks, the images are looking pretty fine. When you're in a tight space, 25mm is enough to fit it all in, and it just looks really great wide open. On a wide like this, I'd be tempted to use f2.5 pretty much all the time. At f2.5, even on a medium format, at 25mm, you're getting quite a bit of depth of field when focusing on things in the mid-distance and beyond. And you can see just how the sharpness extends to the outer reaches of the frame and how low the distortion is, which is great when taking photos of structures. The performance of the lens doesn't disappoint too, especially when combining this lens with the phase detection autofocus of the CFV 100C. It's quick, it's snappy, it feels quick enough for street photography if you like your street photography that wide, but it also benefits from this pumpy ring thing which you can just pull back and push forward. Pulling it back equals autofocus, pushing it forwards equals manual focus. Oh look, you can scale focus the thing now. And it's got a nice weighted feel to it if you like to focus things by yourself. Also, there's another ring behind here which you can remove the declickiness, which one might think is kind of odd because declicky apertures are usually for video use, and this doesn't take any video, does it? But the thing is, this ring can actually be customized, so it's not just for apertures, and it might get annoying if your customized ring is clicking all over the place. It's a lens that I expect to be good because it's a Hasselblad, but yet at the same time, I'm pleasantly surprised. Surprised because it's an f2.5, which makes it so much more usable to get those sharp results, to bring out the best of a 100 megapixel sensor. But there are other little things, like the closest focusing distance is 25 centimeters, which is quite incredible. And perhaps the only way you can get shallow depth of field with a wide angle like this. You won't get any super blurry background, so it's almost pointless to talk about the bokeh, but for what it's worth, it's alright. It makes a great lens for portraits where you want to pull in some of the background detail while keeping it relatively in focus for context and stuff like that. You can use it for night shots, perhaps astrophotography, but the great thing is that you can use it in low light scenarios and you don't have to resort to using a tripod. This is the SWC-like focal length I was hoping that they'd bring to the system without being bogged down by the slower aperture of the SWC lens, which makes this an excellent addition to the X system.